These are 5 common mistakes that you have most likely made or you are going to make, so watch this video so you can help avoid it. In this specific video, I'm going to cover the 5 common mistakes that a lot of Next.js developers make, and I'm going to give you solutions so you can help avoid it in the future. So let's get started. Now, whenever you're ready to level up your Next.js skills, I have some good news. I'm running a exclusive hands-on workshop for you to take your Next.js knowledge to the next level. It will teach you everything that you need to know to design, build, and deploy a full stack app with Next.js. It is a live workshop, so you will get direct access to me and I will answer any questions that you may have as well. Plus, at the same time, you will get lots of exercises to learn different topics in Next.js. You will be divided into breakout rooms so you can learn from your workshop peers as well and learn complex topics together. And if you get stuck, don't worry because I'm there to help guide you as well. Additionally, you can show off your certificate of completion at your workplace or on LinkedIn to showcase that are a certified Next.js developer. At the same time, I will be sharing a lot that I couldn't necessarily share in this specific crash course in that workshop. So if you're interested, please sign up to the waitlist, as the waitlist folks get exclusive launch discounts and special bonuses as well. So sign up to the waitlist and I will see you in the workshop. Now, the image component from Next.js is a special component that extends the image element from the browser. The fact that you use a specific image component means that you get a lot of performance benefits out of the box. Now, you straight away use this by just calling the image component and specifying width and height and so on. But there is a special property called as fill. Now, fill causes the image to fill the parent element when the width and height are unknown. So let's say you want to set the image as a cover, or if you're not sure what the width and height would be, and you want it to fit to the container itself, then you want to make sure that you give the container relative positioning or any of these and then give fill as true. But one of the common mistakes is not specifying the sizes props. It's not something special about Next.js. Sizes prop also comes in the image element, in image HTML element as well. So what Next.js does is that it allows you to again add the sizes prop to the image component as well. What this means is for a max height of 768 pixel, it's going to be 100 viewport width. But let's say for 1200, it's going to be 50 and so on. It's going to have a dramatic effect on your performance because if you don't do this, then it's going to be by default 100 viewport height. And this means that on a smaller device, you're going to basically download a big image and the image selected from the server would be 3 times as wide as it needs to be, unless if you don't specify the 33 viewport width. So for example, in our case, let's say this is a application that we are building. It displays a list of recipes and we have these different cards that display an image as well. So if you take a look at the code, recipe list is where we render that specific card. Now you don't necessarily need to know anything in this application, except that I want you to focus on the image component. Now, I don't have the sizes property here. All I have is I have a relative positioning, I have a height of 80, and I have a background cover and so on. But the important bit is that I have layout fill. Now, if I go to Next.js documentation and just copy this, go to the code and paste it, then this would mean that now my image component is automatically going to serve the proper size based on the breakpoint, based on the viewport. So this would mean that our images are going to be served the way they need to be on specific viewport size. This is a common mistake that a lot of developers make because they don't necessarily specify the size as prop, and then that would lead to downloading a bigger image or a smaller image. And the second mistake that a lot of developers make, and all of these mistakes, by the way, I have made them too, is not something to feel embarrassed about. So for example, this is an easy sell website. We build a specific best website as part of the Next.js crash course, which you should check out as well on my channel. Now, let's say we are trying to sell all these products. So you can upload the products by going to the specific form. Now, this specific form uses server actions because we are performing a mutation, which is we are uploading the product itself. Now, let's say I enter whatever I want in the specific form. Let's see what happens. I'm going to say Road Connect, price will be 190. And again, we can add some description for Road Connect here. Let's just select the image for road and then add any email we want. Now watch what happens when I click on the button add. The minute I do that, nothing happens, but once the product does get uploaded, we essentially get redirected to the home page with a newly created product. Now if I click on Road Connect, it will have the information we updated, but we did not see any loading state. And this is one of the mistakes that it trips many folks up. Now let's take a look at the code for this. Now this is a upload form page, and this is exactly this page over here. Now in the upload form page, we are using a specific hook that we'll come to, but we have a server action which is called sell your item action. We don't need to worry about that for now. But you can see that we are executing the action, and then based on that, we are rendering information onto the page. So this is the entire form. The button where we show the pending state is right here. If pending is true, then we show loading, else we want to show add. Now, this specific hook is responsible for hooking into the specific request, and giving the state of the request itself. So pending is true means that the request is in progress. So that's exactly what we are doing. If it's true, then loading, else add. But despite that, it did not necessarily give us the correct state. And here's why. And that's because useFormStatus returns a status of a specific form. So it must be defined as a child of a form element. So it cannot be in the same element as the parent because it returns the status of a specific form. So in order for it to return it, it must be defined as a child. So we could literally extract this thing out. I already have a button component with the information already, so we can use this wherever we want. So we can just call this button component right here. Now we can just say this. Now let's just import it as well. Now we don't even need this anymore. All it's going to do is going to get the form status and then show it to us. So now if we head over to our upload page and let's enter the same product, we can delete it later. This time add 200, some road connect description, the same image, and now some email address as well. The minute it had, you can see there's a status for loading, and then we get redirected once the product did get uploaded. This is exactly what you want. But then a lot of developers do make this specific mistake, as this is something that was recently updated in the documentation but wasn't super obvious earlier. Now there's one more mistake that a lot of devs make when it comes to server actions. There are a couple of them that we will take a look at. The first one is that when we go to the upload page, and let's say I'm just gonna go and hit add. The minute we do that, we do get a loading state. And if we take a look at our database, there is a third Road Connect product here that we just added. Despite that, we got an error saying that failed to create product. So let's see what. So now here we get an error saying that next redirect error occurred. It's because we are calling the specific redirect function over here. Now the redirect function needs to be invoked outside the try catch block. Now this specific file is the sell your item server action. Now again, we don't need to get into this. If you really want to get into this specific code, then you should check out the server action videos on my channel, or even check out the Next.js crash course. For example, what we are doing here is we are performing some validations. We are parsing the schema, and then we are inserting it into Supabase database. And towards the end, once everything is successful, is when we want to redirect the user. Redirect returns a temporary redirect status code by default. So what it does is that it internally throws an error. So it should be called outside of try catch block. Now what essentially happens here is when we call redirect here, because it throws an error, and the catch block is going to catch it. And that is why it caught the error and it displayed here next error occurred, next redirect. But in fact, that is the expected behavior. It is definitely supposed to throw an error because it sends the temporary redirect status by default, and that is used for then redirecting to a success page as a result of a post request. So what we need to do is move this function outside. And this is how we can redirect the specific user. Caching is a really important but also a very confusing topic inside of Next.js. If you don't purge your data after you refetch your data, or you know that some data is specifically stale because there is no new data, if you don't purge the cache, then Next.js is going to keep the stale data around. And that is the expected behavior. Next.js as a framework is going to cache as much as possible. This is a common mistake that I have made and I have seen so many other developers make as well when it comes to server action and caching. For instance, now I have deleted all the Road Connect products that we had here. So if I refresh the page, this is what I see. Now, if we head to the main page of our application, right now I have a revalidate prop, which is set to 3600. That means every 60 minutes I'm going to get fresh data, but because it's 3600, my data is going to be stale until it hits the hour mark. So after we go ahead and upload our information using the specific sell your item server action, let's watch what happens. There is no road connect at all in our database. Now let's hit add and watch what happens. Loading state gets shown and we get redirected to home, but this time there is no data. Why? Because the data fetching policy that we opted into was incremental static regeneration, which means that it's going to revalidate our cache every hour, not before that. A common mistake that really trips many developers up is that they don't understand why it's not working. Suddenly, they have done everything right. They have integrated so many different technologies and nothing seems to work. Because of this policy, but also because in the server action, there is no revalidate path function. So now again, after the try catch, we need to add revalidate path, and the path is going to be slash because that is the cached route we need to purge. We are saying that after I upload the data, before you redirect, please purge the cache. So now let's see what happens. We should see two products now if we add one more product. Now when I hit add, it's purging the cache, and now we see two products instead of none that we saw earlier. And that's because we have actively gone ahead and purged the cache. Now this is a gotcha, and this is a mistake that many developers make. They spend hours trying to figure out why this isn't working. They almost think that it's their fault, but it's not. You need to know, you need to be aware of how the caching works inside of Next.js and how your page policy can also impact and interfere with your server action revalidate path too. So you really need to make sure that both of them are configured correctly. Now, we already took a look at the specific application, Tasty Next, which renders a list of recipes. The way you want the architecture of your application is in such a way that after the layout, you have server components always as a parent, and then all the children at the bottom. So you want to move the client components all the way as to the bottom as possible, because let's say we were to create a new component here, and let's say it's a server component in fact, then it doesn't matter that we call this a server component. It's going to actually be rendered on the browser because it is in fact a child of a client component. And this is why you want to make sure that the child, that is the client component, is always the child of a server component, is always a leaf in a tree. Keeping that in mind, one of the mistakes that a lot of developers make is that, for example, if we take a look at the code, right now this is a page file, and here we display the list of badges and also the recipe list, which is these list of badges, and this is the recipe list. This entire thing is a recipe list. So now what happens is, let's say I mark this as use client. Now batch filter and recipe list both are client components, but let's say recipe list wasn't. This means that now everything inside of page has become a client component. This is not what you want. So for example, if we now take a look at the browser bundle, if you go to sources and take a look at Webpack internal and app, you will see page.tsx as well. This is not what you want. Now, if we get rid of this and refresh the page, again, inside of Webpack internal, you don't see the page because it's in fact a server component. So this is one mistake a lot of developers make, where they make the topmost component, topmost page as a client component because they need some sort of client functionality. As a result, all the children underneath them also end up becoming client components. So please be careful with this. Always extract the client functionality as we have done here. Extracting this specific functionality out, you are still able to keep page as a server component, which is what we want. But this is a mistake many developers make, so I want you to be careful while making those because otherwise it defeats the purpose of client and server components and your browser bundle is always going. Thank you so much for checking out this specific video. As next steps, please check out the server actions video, which gives an in-depth overview of every single concept we talked about in this specific video, or check out the Next.js crash course, which gives you an in-depth overview of Next.js and how you can build a production-ready modern application. So, I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.